Hello and welcome to the AI Research Roundup. I'm your host Alex, and today is May 10th, 2025. We're looking at an ICLR conference paper on conformal isometry of grid cells, learning distance preserving position embedding, published just over 3.5 months ago on January 22nd. This paper investigates the conformal isometry hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that grid cells, which are special neurons in the brain's medial entorhinal cortex involved in navigation, form an internal map. This map, a neural manifold, is thought to represent our 2D physical position, while preserving local distances, up to a scaling factor, potentially explaining their hexagonal firing patterns. Okay, so this first figure, figure 1, really helps visualize the core concept. Part A shows how an agent's position, x, in 2D physical space, what we call Euclidean space, is represented by a vector, vx, in a higher dimensional neural space. Think of this vector as a specific pattern of neural activity. When the agent moves, this neural vector changes. Part B clarifies this mapping. Then, Part C depicts the neural manifold, essentially a 2D surface formed by all these neural activity patterns, an embedding of the physical world into the brain's representation. Building on that neural manifold idea, Figure 2a shows learned grid cell patterns. These are heat maps from the model, which uses a recurrent neural network, or RNN, an AI that processes sequences, like an agent's path. As the scaling factor S increases, clear hexagonal patterns emerge. Then, Figure 2b, the toroidal analysis, shows in part I that these activities form a torus, a donut shape. Part 2, the Fourier spectrum, a tool revealing dominant repeating patterns, displays 3 wave vectors, K1, K2, and K3, which are characteristic of hexagonal structures. This really demonstrates the emergence of these predicted patterns. Alright, so those figures showed the emergence of the hexagonal patterns. This table, Table 1, then quantifies just how good these patterns are. It compares different models using 2 key metrics: the gridness score, which measures how perfectly hexagonal a cell's firing pattern is, and the valid rate, that's the percentage of cells that actually show these grid-like patterns. The models developed here, using both linear and nonlinear recurrent neural networks, achieve much higher gridness scores, like 1.70, and a 100% valid rate, significantly outperforming previous approaches. Okay, so building on those impressive gridness scores, Table 2 now examines the relationship between the scaling factor, S, and the estimated scale of these learned patterns, specifically for the linear models. This scaling factor S, well, it's a key part of the conformal isometry hypothesis, representing how much physical distances are magnified or shrunk when mapped into the neural representation. What we see here is quite direct. As S increases, say from 5 up to 15, the estimated spatial scale of the grid patterns actually decreases from 0.82 down to 0.27. This inverse relationship is exactly what the theory suggested. So after seeing how the scaling factor influences the grid pattern scale, Figure 4 here provides a direct look at how well these learned representations actually preserve distances. We're looking at physical distance moved on the horizontal axis, that's backquote, delta backquote, versus the change in the neural activity pattern on the vertical axis, backquote, Vx plus delta x, Vx backquote. The blue dots, showing the model's learned behavior, stick very closely to the green dashed line. That line represents perfect distance preservation with a scaling factor of 10, meaning the neural change is directly proportional to physical movement, especially for smaller steps. So that distance preservation is key. Figure 3 then investigates what specific model ingredients are crucial for these hexagonal patterns to emerge. The left side, A through D, shows nonlinear models using different rectified functions, which are just specific types of activation functions. It seems that enforcing non-negativity, so neural activity can't be negative, helps. But the right side, E through H, an ablation study on the linear model, is very telling. An ablation study removes model parts to test their importance, removing either the conformal isometry constraint, L1, or the normalization. Keeping activity vectors at a constant length completely breaks the hexagonal pattern. This really highlights their necessity. Alright, So those ablation studies really emphasized how vital both the conformal isometry constraint, the idea that local distances are preserved, and normalization, keeping activity levels consistent, are for the models to learn hexagonal patterns. Figure 5 then takes a crucial step. It examines actual neural data from rodents. Part A plots how much recorded neural activity changes versus the physical distance an animal moved. We see a clear linear relationship there, which strongly supports that conformal isometry principle. Then, Part B shows a histogram of the neural activity's overall strength, and it's mostly clustered around a central value, backing up the normalization assumption. These findings from real neural data help ground the model's core ideas in biological observations. So, to wrap things up on this fascinating look at grid cells, the main takeaway is that the conformal isometry hypothesis, which means preserving local distances when mapping physical space to neural activity, really explains those hexagonal patterns. This research shows that when models learn to keep local distances accurate, hexagonal grids just emerge. Their theory even suggests a hexagonal arrangement on a neural torus, that's a kind of donut-shaped activity space, is optimal for this. And it's all supported by strong computational and biological evidence. Thanks for tuning into the AI Research Roundup. I'm Alex, and I'll catch you next time.